It's Murphy, Sam, and Jody after the show, the podcast, and this is
the
really
best
cool.
one.
This is the three of us have been looking forward to this forever, and so finally visiting with us is John, our friend who we met, from Australia. So first we need to say welcome.
Good morning.
Wait, how do you say it in Australian?
Is it cheers?
G'day.
Yes.
G'day, everyone. How are you?
Everything that you say, I'm in love with. We had dinner the other night, and I stopped counting how many times you used the word bloke for a dude, a friend.
Yes, see, in America, you use dude. We use bloke or man.
Or mate.
Or mate.
What do you use for the ladies?
Ooh.
Over here, it's not counted. Ladies, Sheila's.
Sheila.
Oh, really?
Or the chick.
Which is Sam's favorite.
Chicks and broads and babes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sheila. That's interesting and different. Do we say anything that strikes you as odd?
Oh, hell yes.
Everything.
Like?
Dude absolutely wipes me out every time. I want to burst out and laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time.
Is that because dude means something else? It has a different connotation in Australia, or is it just because it's
so unusual to hear it from everyone?
Yeah.
And women in Australia don't tend to use the word mate, and over here women go, "How you going, dude?"
Yeah.
And it's like,
So for you, that was more like a guys thing between guys.
yeah.
So it was mafia.
I think the dude thing kind of in the 80s took on its whole just different thing in America. Just because dude is really just sort of it's a Western term, right? I mean, isn't it?
I don't know.
The old West U.S. kind of thing.
Western, then it became kind of beach.
It kind of valley.
Dude.
Right, that's what I'm saying. The
See,
1980s kind of brought that. Yeah.
See, that's where we probably heard it.
It's not
in
a
a
word
song.
I use very often, but I'll use it not as addressing someone, but like if Sam will show me something, text me something really awesome that he knows I love, I'll send back, dude. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't use it very
we say
often.
wow. And a few times I've had to text people and they go, yeah, dude. And I'm like, okay. It's slightly confusing, but now I've been here 3 weeks and
Dude, you're into it.
Well, I'm not into it, but I've come to realize what it's about.
Right.
The other one I had a quick, Jody,
No, go ahead.
a question about was cheers, because I noticed when I
held
the door open for you at the restaurant, you went cheers. And
Yeah,
then when
it's a
you got
thank
your drink,
you. It's
cheers.
between mates.
Okay,
You know,
so
cheers.
it's not just a toast, like
No.
cheers.
No.
It's
No.
like thanks.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a thank you.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that too.
That's
So
good to know because
much.
I always thought it was more like a hello or just a greeting, but it's a thank you. Okay.
Well, it can be all those things.
Okay.
It seriously can. I confuse people when they open up the door, or a young gentleman is opening up the door, and I thank him. I'll just say cheers, and
Yeah.
I guess it's the accent as well, because they're not really sure what I've actually said most of the time. Because
Right.
No, well, I mean, I opened the door and I froze for a second because you said cheers, and I was like, because I'm used to like thank you. You open the door for a lady or anybody, and they go, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And so when you said cheers, well, cheers is your thank you. So
Yeah.
I got it.
yeah,
Well, and so cheers, typically I guess in the U.S. is two people clinking glasses and toasting to something. You know what I mean?
Truly.
Funny.
sometimes when we're out with mates and we've just been for
You
a
mean
ride,
dudes?
Out with mates. No, out with mates. I love it.
and that when you toast your first drink, you yo, and clink glasses.
Just yo?
Yeah, yo.
Yo.
I like it.
I'm going to remember that next time too.
One
So
thing
we're
we-
learning so much.
One thing we sort of touched on at dinner, which I thought was super interesting, not that it's a surprise to the Americans here, is that you find food and portion sizes to be ridiculous in America. Yes?
Oh yeah. Last night I struggled.
So much
I
food.
You thought it was being served for you and who else, right? Yeah, it's a big portion.
Struggled. I love the entree size that we got. And by the way, the food there last night, great.
Good.
Really seafood. I'm over the steak.
Yeah, because you had a seafood pasta. You liked it? Was it good?
Yeah, it was great.
Good.
It really was. Oh, and we say prawns, you say shrimp.
Right.
Okay,
Okay,
shrimp were
wow.
lovely.
Good.
Oh,
They
really,
are.
really nice.
As long as they don't have the heads on. We talked about that at
We
the
talked
table.
about that. Well, didn't pipe up last night.
What?
Okay. In Australia, when we're having an outdoor backyard barbecue, sometimes on the barbecue, which is a grill out here,
Right.
Yeah.
righto, we throw the whole prawn on. Righto. Then we slice it up through the middle, throw a bit of garlic in, eat the heads,
Sounds good.
pull the back off and the tail, and eat the heads afterwards because they're all crunchy and lovely with all the garlic in them.
Really?
Mash them up. Bingo.
You eat the
Really?
heads?
Yeah, eat the heads.
Yeah, okay. See, the reason we brought it up last night, Bailey, you weren't able to be with us. I asked to order a shrimp dish, but with everything on the menu had heads on. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I need one without the heads because I don't like the eyes looking at me. I just don't like the eye to show up, the head, the face to show up and look at me if I'm going to eat it.
There's something about the empathy you feel for the shrimp in that moment.
It's empathy and it's ooginess. It's
Well,
like,
just throw it in your mouth then.
it's an eyeball. So
So
I
how
only
did we
ate the
come
tail.
up with shrimp on the Barbie if it's really prawns
prawns
on the Barbie?
Prawns. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's probably Outback made that up.
yeah.
I suspect Outback Steakhouse is not true, authentic
Well,
Australian.
what do you think? You've been to an Outback Steakhouse, have you not, when you were in
Okay,
America?
they need to learn what medium rare, blue, medium to well done, and overly done.
Blue?
Means.
What's blue?
Blue is where you throw the steak on 1 minute one side, 2 minutes the other side,
So
Oh.
breathing.
and then serve it.
Ah,
That's blue.
Whew,
that's rare.
So
Yeah.
it's
red.
what you call,
It's actually
See,
red. is what it
It's
sounds like.
still mooing, is what you're saying.
still moving. And then a medium to well done is where there's no juices coming out. People say blood. There's no such thing as blood in meat.
Right.
Righto. It's the juices that come out. They just happen to look red and
Right.
all the rest. It's not blood. And medium to well done means it's cooked all the way right through, very little juices coming out, but the meat is still tender.
Yeah.
And then a well done is well done. It's lost all its juices.
Yeah, it's
and
leather.
It's not quite leather, but it's well done.
Yeah.
That's right. It does lose most of its
Yeah.
flavor in
And
that process.
You
know?
guys happen to like it when they bring it out on a plate and it's still cooking.
Yeah, sizzling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sizzling.
Yeah, get over that.
So not right.
So,
not right.
other than Foster's, what is their Australian at Outback?
Oh, okay. Nothing.
Yeah.
Look, they've gone to the taste of America and they've opened up to the market. And I don't blame them. But when an Australian walks in and they know I'm from Australia, you get told to eat the chicken.
Wait, this is a real
Eat the
story,
chicken,
right?
It's a real story.
You went in there and and they said you're from Australia. What? And you said,
I sat down and waitress came over and I said, what does the waitress recommend? And she said, you're from Australia. I said, yes, I'm from Sydney. She goes, let's try the chicken.
"You think that means she had no faith in the Australianness of the menu?"
I think
Authenticity.
she had been told.
Yeah.
I think
Unreal.
she'd been told once before. But look, I love the onion rings. And
The
look,
bloomin' onion
The
is what
bloomin'
they
onion,
call
but
it.
that's not a true.
No,
Which is really
Australian.
Australian, right?
okay, you want to know how to cook onions. Okay. Righto. You get the onions, you chop them up, take the skin off. Don't cook them with the skin on.
Right.
Brown sugar.
Okay.
Depending on how much you have, throw the brown sugar in with them, cook them up, and the brown sugar caramelizes.
Yum. That does sound
Wow.
really good.
And
Try
it's
that.
most the simplest way of doing it. And if you want mashed potato, try mashed potato with sweet mashed potato
oh, sweet
and
potatoes.
brown sugar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You are
it's
really
the brown
gonna
sugar
enjoy it.
solution is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So
We talked about Vegemite last night. And Bailey, do you know, this is cool. I mean, Bailey, you're interested in foods.
Yeah,
and you're kind
I know
of
that Vegemite is a thing, but I've never actually had it.
We
Black
learned
tar.
last night from John, and I'd like you to repeat for anyone who's interested, the reason that we as Americans or anyone else in the world who can't understand why Australians like Vegemite is because we eat too much of it, right?
Excessive.
We're too excessive with our big gulp of it.
Interesting.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah. It's not peanut butter, guys.
So small amounts.
Yeah.
Very small amount. Okey-doke. On the end of your knife, it's definitely acquired taste, but when you're trying it, very small portions
Okay.
on toast.
Okay.
Very small
So
portions.
it's just a very light
Yeah.
spread.
Think
It's
of
not thick at
wasabi.
all.
You wouldn't want a spoonful of it, right? You just want a tiny tad for
Yeah.
that kiss of taste.
We talked.
I've never tried it. I've
Me
never
either.
tasted it.
I'm
We
so-
super
talked about the
curious.
excessiveness last night with the peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, as I told these guys, if you want to lose weight, stick with peanut butter on a spoon once. One spoon,
Teaspoon.
suck on it. It'll take away the cravings for eating and everything else. But you've got to minimalize it. One spoon at a time, not one after the other. Have it for a meal. 2 or 3 maybe at the most for breakfast, lunch and dinner. That's it. You'll lose weight. It will crave your appetite. Drink lots of water and you will lose weight.
the
But
peanut
America
butter diet.
is excessive with everything and it just can't happen.
Yeah. That is interesting. It was because it was the first question I asked you with the plates and the portion sizes here in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy.
Is that more so than in restaurants in Australia, too? Restaurants in Australia don't serve portions
No,
that large?
No.
Really? Do you
No,
feel you get your money's worth?
Well, in Australia, no, we probably don't get our money's worth. But we don't, seriously, you pay for what you get, you eat. If you're not satisfied, don't go back. That's the Australian way.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Do you have any idea how cool you sound to us? To
Well,
me.
And
To
if,
listen to you talk all day.
for anybody that doesn't know how we met John, it was kind of funny because we were joking at one point. We wanted to know from our studios in the U.S. We're based actually in Louisiana, heard everywhere, but we wanted to know where the farthest from us listener would be. I'm not asking that question. How do we ask the question?
Sam did it.
Who
I wonder how.
I think it was Sam.
Because there's so many ways people can listen on your devices. You can listen anywhere in the world.
You were
Sam
going
was
on
like,
about iHeartRadio and how it's an app and how you can download it and all the rest. And I think Sam and Em, when she was here as producer, just said, I wonder where the furthest it goes out to.
Yeah.
And next
And you
thing-
looked at that as a challenge.
And I just went,
Probably me.
It's probably me.
Hands up, I'm listening in Sydney. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't listening in Sydney. It was Coffs Harbour when I
Okay.
was listening to you guys.
Okay.
And the furthest away I listened to you was in Adelaide,
Okay.
which is, and by
Along-
the way, the Hay Plains in the middle of Australia.
Okay.
Out there, we actually do have Wi-Fi out in the middle of the outback, and I could listen to you then. But
Yeah.
I tried to listen to you all the way across to Perth once, and it wasn't until I was in Perth, but around Adelaide and down through the Hay Plains.
So I'm trying to picture that. If you're not
Yeah.
familiar with the geography of Australia, what part of the continent is it?
Okay. Sydney, New South Wales is the east coast.
Okay.
Perth, Western Australia is the west coast.
Okay.
Okay. Adelaide, southwest.
Okay.
All right. Hay Plains, middle west.
Okay. All right.
So we have to work on the signal in Perth. That's what you're saying.
Make a note of that, Sam. Yeah.
Actually, probably from Kalgoorlie onwards. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, put that in your notes.
Kalgoorlie. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I have one thing that I've always wondered about Australia in particular. I've always heard that its nature is quite dangerous. Like, how often do you think about just the wildlife of Australia on a daily basis,
I don't think about it.
Yeah?
And that is probably the truth.
it's
Yeah.
your normal.
It's our normal.
Yeah.
I've been up to Northern Territory. In fact, I have a really funny story from when I was about 4 years old.
Yeah.
Jeebus. we moved up to Darwin. My father was in the Navy, and some person in the 18th century named the major river in the Northern Territory the Alligator River. Australia doesn't have alligators, everyone. We do not have alligators. We have crocodiles that
Right.
grow up to 6 meters long and weigh over 3.5 ton. They're big.
Right.
A little, yeah. Sounds like
Yeah.
it.
I could say something else, but we're on radio, so I can't.
Now I really want to know. Okay.
And my father and all the blokes who were in the Navy at the time had time off, so they went out duck shooting. We were all kids.
Yeah.
And the ducks were falling into the river, and we'd swim out and go and get them because they didn't have dogs. And people were taking photos, and mothers were all there, were all swimming and everything else. We sent these photos later on back to parents. My mother received about 4 or 5 letters saying, "What are you doing swimming in the Alligator River?" And we're like, well, I didn't know at the time.
No kidding.
I was young. But when I look back at it when I was about 12 or 13, we were living in Cronulla at the time. I thought, wow, that was pretty dangerous. Of us.
Yeah.
But then when I spoke to my father about it, he said, oh, no, we had rifles there. We were all ready in case any of them came up or that. It was all pretty guarded. And then, sadly, 3 weeks later, a camper was taken in the same spot.
Oh.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it happens.
Yeah.
Careful
So
what waters you play in.
You decided
Yeah.
not to go swim there
For
again, I
sure.
assume?
I have been back there a couple of times.
Have you really?
And the signs are all up there now saying don't swim.
Yeah.
And constantly you will have cars going backwards and forwards. And every now and then this crocodiles will come out because crocodiles are very lazy. Same with alligators. They're very lazy. When we have 30-foot tides, they go up and down, about 30 foot in Darwin, and they will swim in the tide. And that's why you saw the one with the noodle wrapped around it on the internet, because they just swim. They don't swim. They don't wag their tail. They just
They just
Just
glide.
run along. Yeah.
they glide.
Mhm.
And, and when I was up there, the third time round, there was a bloke who used to run. He's only just retired, by the way. He used to run up there and he used to feed Angry. Angry is this massive croc, probably over 6 meters long. He's lost one of his legs in a fight with probably a bigger crocodile that was up the river. So don't ever think that anyone is great because there's always someone better.
Truth. Truth.
And he was telling us just before he retired that he was fixing the prop on one of the boats and everything else, and he looked up. He was in the water, and you can't see a foot in front of him. He looked up, and all of a sudden, right next to him went Angry. And he went, that is the absolute closest I ever want to get. And he said
Sure.
it was like he was God. He was walking on water less than 2 feet away and in the boat. And he, to this day, he can't tell you how he got out. He just knows that he just
wow.
jumped. And
Scary.
Angry went by.
Mm.
And it was, he said if he'd another 2 inches and Angry felt him because they close their eyes and they just go.
Go.
Yeah.
And he said if Angry knew he was there, he would have been
Yeah.
gone. Absolutely gone.
Scary.
Yeah. So don't ever think, and they turn up in cans on the beaches. And there was a photo of one not all that long ago.
On the public beaches, they'll show
on the
up.
public beaches in well, sometimes they're public.
Yeah.
But they say, oh, it was a 5 meter crocodile. And everyone out here thought they were talking about 5 feet. Oh, that's not too big. Our alligators go to 12 feet and all the rest. And finally, about comment 1,000 and something or other, it goes, sorry, guys, this is in meters.
Yeah.
That is 3.3 feet per one.
Right.
And it's like, hang on a sec. Oh,
Conversion.
that's 18 feet long.
Very.
Pretty big.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Yeah, I always try to remember that a meter is a little bit longer than a yard. That's all I remember.
Yes,
I don't
it
remember
is
the
longer
mental
than a
conversion,
yard.
but yeah, right.
So I'm reading an article right now about the crocodiles in Cahill and the river you were talking about.
Yeah, alligator.
Yeah. There's an estimated 80,000 to 100,000 crocodiles just in the top end of Australia.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but besides that, we've got the deadliest snake in the world.
Oh, okay.
Duh.
It-
Yeah, I've always heard all that too. Not just the wildlife, but just the terrain, just the actual
Yeah,
conditions.
it can turn nasty in less than 2 hours.
That-
Three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
That's-
gives you such credibility for being so tough.
That's compared to about 1,000 to 2,000 American crocodiles in like Mexico, Central America, and Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really do have to do something about it because they're encroaching on areas where they've never been before.
Well,
But-
we eat alligators here. So.
Oh, we eat our crocodile meat too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Tastes like chicken.
Of course.
Which brings us back to Outback.
Look, we tried to export our crocodile meat to America, and unfortunately, environmentalists, I love you guys, but when you're commenting on something that's happening in Australia and you don't know what's happening, yet you're stopping a market that people would quite literally save your own alligators and that so they can breed and get back to the numbers that they should. You know, there's a good point. We have a problem.
Yeah.
And we also have a big problem with kangaroos at the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a huge problem. We're in drought. And we have been on and off for the last 20 years. And we have a massive kangaroo population. Have you ever seen those guys suffer out in the outback when there's no water and
Oh,
everything?
I don't want to see
It's
that.
absolutely incredibly bad. And because environmentalists have stepped in and everything else, we're not allowed to cull them. And, you know, Australia lives on the fact that we don't waste anything. That's the whole point. We had huge markets in America of kangaroo meat and everything else where these animals have survived 40, 50,000 years and they've been through worse droughts than the one that we're going through at the moment. Now, I hate killing. I hate guns. I hate a lot of things in life. And I don't like using the word hate because it's a very strong word and it's
Right.
very emotional. But when people comment on something that they have no idea about and they've never been to a place, they've never seen it. And I've seen truck drivers get out of their trucks and euthanize kangaroos alongside the road because they are suffering so badly. Now, that's, to an Australian, that's a huge waste. Incredible waste. Now, if we were allowed to cull them properly, produce the meat and everything else, we had viable markets all over the world for that. It's all been stopped. And now we have a massive problem where we're literally farmers have to go out. Not only are they euthanizing their own cattle and everything else, they now have to do the wildlife as well because we can't see animals suffer.
Right.
And the people who go out and do these culls are highly trained. A lot of them used to be in the army and everything else. A lot of them know what they're doing, and there are huge big regulations with everything. But you know, I'm all for hugging a tree and everything else. But when you haven't been out there and you're saying something, you know, this morning someone put up online this thing and they used a video that was of the mad cow disease and blaming the heat wave in Texas. Like misconception.
Right.
And these things are used to get people's emotions. Well, come to Australia, you'll really see what drought and heat wave is really
Yeah.
really is.
Well, it's today's social media world makes it very difficult to wade through propaganda. How do you differentiate between what's
Yeah.
fact, what's
Everywhere.
propaganda?
Yeah, I know, and
Yeah.
you guys have pointed this out many times over the years, and that I've heard, and you know, it's difficult, really is, especially when one of the biggest reasons why I stopped doing overnight trucking and all the rest is because of the huge big risk and personal risk to myself, but it's also mentally strained. And to watch other guys get out and do something because they care and they love animals, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And you
Right.
know, there are simple ways to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, I know environmentalists have got a place in this world. Please just don't comment on something unless you've actually seen it.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
For some context, in 2015 there were 24 million human residents in Australia, and there were 44 million kangaroos.
Wow.
44 million.
Yeah.
Wow. No kidding.
Yes.
That's unbelievable.
Wait,
Uh-huh.
repeat that one again. The
Oh,
recorder stopped.
yeah, yeah.
Say it one more time. So for
For some context, there were about in 2015, 24 million human residents in Australia,
Okay.
and 44 million kangaroos in the last count that they
that's
had.
double the population.
Yeah,
And crocodiles
Yeah.
at that stage as well. There were
yeah, 100,000
Yeah.
roundabout.
and we've lost all the markets.
Mhm.
Why? Yeah.
So-
we had very humane ways of doing things.
Here's a dumb question because we don't have kangaroos, here. I know what not to do and not approach a black bear, for example, in the Smokies.
Right. No, this is
what
a
hap-
great question.
But what do you do if you see a kangaroo in your backyard, or
You know
are
what you
dangerous?
do?
In America, I get it; it's a different thing, Sam.
I would probably try to make it.
kangaroo!
I'd probably try to make it my pet.
Right.
You know me.
You can't make it your pet because they're wild, right? But kangaroos will not attack you unless they are aggravated or attacked or feel threatened.
Okay.
There are houses all around in the suburbs and everything else like that, and they will put photos up on kangaroo sitting out on the grass this morning and all the rest. Just ignore it. Take a few photos of it, say hello,
Just coexist.
and that. Keep your dogs away from it.
Oh.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I mean, do they get into garbage cans or anything like that, or
No,
I'm just asking.
Why
Yeah?
are you
No,
laughing so
no.
hard?
Because I
a
have cartoons in
cartoon.
my head.
Right.
I wanted to add.
Look, Sam, I can honestly say while this is all going on, I'm remembering my girlfriend Tracy and her daughter seeing their first kangaroos up close in the wild. And I said to Tracy, there are two. One's a mother, one's a Joey, probably only about 18 months old. And she's going, oh, yeah. And I said, now calm down, because if you're not calm, they're going
They
to take
won't.
off.
Oh, yeah.
And that. So they just calmly walked over like nothing was happening, like they were about to go and knock on the front door of the house, and took a couple of photos, stayed there, laid down, never moved.
Really?
But
That's so
if
cool.
she was like, oh, and, raced across the street and everything else like that. And I locked the car doors. Because I knew what was going to happen. The house was L-shaped, and where they were sitting, there was a bush out the front. They would have been cornered. They are nasty.
Yeah.
When they're
especially-
cornered?
Yeah.
Do they really
Yeah.
punch when they're cornered? I feel like
Oh,
I've
yeah,
seen
yeah,
videos.
yeah,
They
yeah,
actually
yeah.
punch.
Yeah, they actually, all except for they don't fold their hands. They open them full claws, and the claws are probably, like that
Wow.
on each.
Wow.
Razors, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Razors. And when they scratch down your face or whatever, or across your chest, and that they are likely to rip through all 8 layers.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, and then they have
Scary.
That's
these
not the sweet
massive-
kangaroo I think of.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, they're cuddly. You're supposed to be able to hug
Tango
'em.
from Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's funny about that, John, is if Jody, because I know Jody so well, being married and all that, if she saw a kangaroo,
Oh, yeah.
she would just like completely, oh my God, it's a kangaroo. Very sweet and,
Wait,
you know.
I was calm around the bears.
Oh, yeah, you were.
On the
But
outside.
but you were excited about it. you know?
Right. So I will, if I ever get a chance to see a kangaroo, hopefully I'll be in Australia with you. We'll all
Yep.
just come visit.
Boy, that would be cool.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to see
Come on,
one.
Dad.
But you'll have to just keep me calm. You'll have to remind me, chill.
I'm not going to Australia, not if there's vicious kangaroos and crocodiles everywhere and the world's most poisonous snake.
But you've
Nanny.
seen the story about Fluffy the emu, haven't you?
Fluffy the emu.
Yeah, he goes jogging on Sundays with all the park joggers.
Oh, well, that's
no,
nice.
really?
No.
Yeah, Fluffy.
But can't emus
Yeah,
attack
and look
you
it
too?
up. Look it up on the internet.
I'm
We're gonna
working
look
on
it up. Bailey's all over it. Bailey's all over it. So, what has been your favorite part of America so far? John.
Jeebus. Crikey's. Look,
It's hard to pick, right?
and I came here for a couple of very good reasons. Bucket list, reasons. I'm doing it. I'm sitting on 2 wheels. I'm going around America. I've had a close call.
On a Harley.
On a Harley, yeah.
Yeah, tank slapper. Had Boris's in my head yelling at me, telling me if I'm gonna, okay, and all the rest, and it was pretty bad. Like at 80 miles an hour, because that's the speed limit in Texas. I won't say what I was doing, but that's the speed
Yeah.
limit in
yeah.
Texas.
There are a few stretches of road like that.
Yes, fully backpacked motorcycle rider, concentrating on doing what he was doing. Back wheel in the air, 3.5 feet minimum, because that front wheel came down first, and that's what started the tank slapper.
Yeah.
And Boris yelling in my head. He happens to be a motorcyclist in Australia who
About to say,
writes
who's
about
Boris?
experiences and everything else. The memory of what Boris wrote back in 1989 hit me in the forehead like a ton of bricks, and I got out of that tank slapper very nicely.
What
good.
was that he taught you? Like what?
Look where you're going. Look where you want to go. Don't look what will happen. So totally ignore the handlebars. Keep a hold of them. Gear down. Rev. Touch the rear brakes. Don't touch the front brakes. Don't touch the front brakes. And this is going on in my head
Mm-hmm.
over
Quickly.
and over. Now, Boris, when he did it, he was going down the Hume Highway in between Sydney and Melbourne. He had a passenger on the back, probably about 160 pounds, and that. I probably had about 45, maybe 50 pounds of equipment
Right.
Stuff.
and stuff on the back, all the T-shirts I bought from this wonderful country. Yeah, came across with 3 T-shirts, and I think I've got 12 now. So all of that, and just Boris in my head going, "You'll be upset if you mess this up badly." And I looked where I wanted to go, didn't look anywhere else. Ignored the handlebars, ignored the tank, even though it punched me in the chest. I still got the lump. And pulled over. Flat tire, and the whole works. Walked away, laughed,
Good.
put it up on the internet.
I know.
Like everybody else.
We saw that. We saw your accident. Well, I'm glad you're fine. And Your
Yeah.
bike is fine.
Yeah,
And you've more miles to go.
I've got a lot more miles to go. A lot more.
Yeah. And so this one, I mean, you've only done part of your bucket list. You're going to come back next year and do
And complete
some more.
the bucket list. I'm going to do Route 66, and I don't think I'll go into Chicago. Chicago is not one of the places I really want to see. I
Okay.
know, sorry, those people who have been to Chicago and say, it's a lovely place. No, I just want to do Route 66 and then go down to Daytona
Okay.
bike week. There are a couple of other things I want to do up through Montana and and that. But the biggest surprise, and I've been to Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, the Space Center,
Mm-hmm.
Houston. I've been into Dallas. And sorry, Dallas doesn't excite me. And that great place, and for the people who live there and all the rest. But that's not on my bucket list.
Okay.
I did one of my bucket list things a long time ago, and that was going down the one, all the way from the top right down through to San Diego, and that was
Highway 1?
Highway 1.
Really?
And and it wasn't long after. I forget the name of the place, but it's before you hit San Francisco. The front of the houses are actually standing on the cliff, and you can go and open up the front door, and they've got it locked, and the house is missing, and the cliff is missing, and all the rest. And you look straight down. That's the Indian Ocean down there. It is like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was one of
You
my
did
bucket
that.
lists a long time ago. So I've done that part, and that's why I'm not going back up that way.
Right.
And I've done it all the way straight down to San Diego. But when I got into San Diego, I never got to go on the Midway. So this time when I left California, I went straight down, straight into the Midway, ventured all over that. But the biggest surprise of all this entire trip was the kid.
USS
USS
Kid?
Kid.
A bit of a story to it. Now, I knew about the kid long before I knew about you guys.
Right.
Because
This is for Bailey and for Chad. You'll find this really cool because for somebody from Australia, you wouldn't think Baton Rouge would be on his map.
Right.
But, this is the reason
It
that
is.
he is familiar with Baton Rouge in Louisiana.
okay, I've already said that my father was in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
In 1958, the kid came into Sydney, and it was there for about a week. My father was on board HMAS Sydney at the time, and he later transferred over to HMAS Melbourne, which are the aircraft carriers that we no longer have in the Australian Navy. My father talked about it because I later on joined the Navy. I knew about the kid through the story. My father met the Americans and all the rest. So I sort of was interested, and I later joined the Navy. But when I found out and heard about the kid was 2000, I think it might have been before 2000, but I'll say around about 2000, so about 19 years ago. And I remember my father talking about it. So I looked it up, and I went, oh, it's now a museum. Oh, good. If I'm ever in America down that way, I'll go and have a look. So when I planned this trip and I blocked off all my media, as Sam will know, because he used to look for me.
He went private. He went
on
incognito.
Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to let anything slip or whatever because I wasn't really sure whether I'd get the time off work or whatever.
Yeah.
And the kid was part of this trip and that. But the biggest thing was, as we all know, the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, and that being a 9-year-old kid venturing out to the middle of the outback around parks and all the rest as a kid with my parents, and then later on motorcycling and all the rest, knowing the story, seeing this huge big dish in a sheep farm. And, I've got photos of it when there were 500, 600 sheep running around in the paddock and that of the dish. So when work sort of brought me into semi-retirement, another long story, it was just wonderful. It was like a real eye-opener. I could do this now and that. And so here I am, but
I love that.
everything is a surprise.
When you say dish, that's one of those things. Obviously, Australia, well, I guess multiple countries were really instrumental in us being able to pull
Yes.
off that moon landing because you had to have communications based around the planet to
Yes.
be able to stay in contact with every Apollo
But
mission.
what I remind Americans about, and I love this part,
Yeah.
Australia saw it 9 seconds before you did.
Yeah, and-
Really?
yeah, actually, and I just happened to read this during all the 50th anniversary stuff. The video that was beamed down from the moon was received in Australia, and
Okay.
then it was transmitted over to us. So the actual recordings are, and I think they've been lost, but the original, I guess what you'd call the masters,
Yes.
which clear pictures and all that stuff was sent to Australia, and then we got everything.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
the stuff we saw on TV,
We saw it a
The
lot
second-
clearer than you guys.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
9 seconds earlier.
And
Right.
9 seconds earlier. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up again. I'm sorry, but it was a wonderful moment, and let me tell you, America was probably never on my map until I saw those guys walking on the moon, and I watched every Apollo from day one. It was a project in school, to the problems, to the instigation, the happening, and I won't give away any story, but I also watched many things about Discovery and Atlantis and
The
all
shuttle
rest.
program and all that.
Yeah, how it came about, which is a wonderful story. And look, I've got to give it to the ladies in America because they really stepped up and helped and did a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about behind the scenes. They really
'Cause
did.
everything was about those guys doing it.
Yeah.
Well, at that time.
Well, and the
At
pictures
that
you
time.
saw of Mission Control were all men and all that, but obviously there were.
Yeah, look, you had to look behind and find out stories, and I think I've still got it back in Houston. But there was a paper that came out. The woman is still alive, and she had 3 children, and they worked around her, and she ended up. She was an engineer. She worked on the program 6 months prior to the launch, where the computer had to reboot every time and had to go back exactly where it was. Program was never ever around, and this woman was told this is the way the computer's got to react, and that was on the landing. And everyone who knows anything about the landing knows that computer rebooted every couple of seconds because of an alarm.
And it was right in the middle of them and the descent going to land. It just kept rebooting. It's like, if it doesn't come back up, what do we do?
Yeah. And this woman, if it wasn't for her program and the people that she was in control of, they would have aborted it. And you guys would have never landed on the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
for all
incredible.
the skeptics, okey-doke, being
Yeah.
from Australia,
Yeah.
okay, we've heard all the theories, righto?
We
I'll
have
put
too.
it to you this way.
The theories, you mean that it was a fake?
And simple. It's not a fake because Russia would have never, ever, of any cause, let any country get away with a fake.
Yeah.
Truth.
There is
Right.
no way. And even Russia comes out these days and says they did it, they beat us. And that if it was a fake, we would have jumped on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that time, I mean, that race for space was a very real deal. And you're talking about a time, and I was not alive during that time in the early
neither.
1960s where,
Oh, don't tell me I'm
everything-
the oldest.
we're close, but just the the way that Russia was viewed in the Cold War and this the sentiment or the lack of sentiment between America and Russia was a very, very real deal. So you're exactly right. If we'd had even attempted to do something as a fake, of course it would have been called out. Yeah.
And by the way, Australians are rule. We're not actors, and the world is not flat.
Big
I am
fear, big
solid
conspiracy
proof of that.
theories in this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, John, we're glad that you got to come do your bucket list stuff, and we're really, beyond that, it's really cool to be able to connect and meet you because we've only really talked by phone. We met you on Facebook when you reached out and said,
know,
"Yes,
and-
I'm probably the listener who's farthest away from you," and now we get to see you in person, which is
Yeah.
just a gift.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've just noticed over next to Sam.
Tim Tam.
Oh,
I
had
brought
one
my
of those this
Tim
morning.
Tam so I could try the little
Yes.
coffee trick. And I gave one to producer Bailey, and he
Yeah.
loved it.
They're
Yeah, it
good.
was really good.
I had one last night.
I had 4 last night.
It's delicious.
Good
Now I
on
didn't do it
you.
with the I didn't do it with any liquid. I liked it by itself.
Yeah, they're
Sam
very
tried
good.
it with the liquid.
Yeah, I bit the ends off and sucked up the coffee.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you forgot to tell us that after like the first draw, it starts to fall apart. 'Cause I was like, ah! And shoved it in my mouth.
Bailey, did you do it with coffee or
Yeah, I did, and it's
You
probably
draw once
yeah,
and then you go with the, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. It was probably
Yeah.
one of the only things I've had that was better with coffee. I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you for that special not Italian.
And
Australian treat.
And John, you said that they're not available in the States, and we went and we looked on Amazon. Apparently, there's somebody who's a reseller, but when you start to look at the comments, I don't know if they're just like getting them imported or something, but people say that they're melted or they're stale or
They
this,
don't
that, and
make
so
the journey
There must
well.
not be a distributor that's in America
no.
for those.
Well, there is a distributor. He's standing right next
That's
to us.
right.
Hey. Thank you, our dear friend John.
Yeah, can I dob the customs guy in? The customs guy who got one of my 10 packets.
That's right.
The bloke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the spare one that I wanted.
Well, thanks, John. Well, enjoy the rest of your ride. Be safe on your
I will.
Harley, and
You'll hear from me.
Oh, we know we will. So thank you.